Hey, 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 looky, looky. Here for another night, a heads up advisor. Craig Lack flying solo here. Although we might see a cameo of Mr. Sbrocco, but time will tell. I thought about what we should talk about tonight, and I thought it would be very appropriate to talk about something that we could use both personally and professionally. So, probably none of you know, but I actually several years ago did some time learning the Jack Canfield training system. And I found it to be really helpful for me in my personal life, probably more so than my business life. And so I thought I would share that tonight with you guys and gals. And get ready for this. It's quite simple, but like I believe a Galileo, no, one of these guys said, look, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Da Vinci. And so that's what we're going to talk about. So get out your pen and paper because you're probably going to find something interesting. You may share this with your spouse to arm them with a better way to communicate. And so, without any further ado, let's talk about Jack Canfield, right? This guy has sold hundreds and hundreds of millions of books because he was smart enough to get them spec'd by the Chinese government to help people learn English. So, just another way that you can diversify something that you may not expect. But he has a book called Success Principles. I'd recommend you get it. You read it 2 or 3 times. But one of the things that struck me and the thing that I love best about it was this formula for life. He calls it E plus R equals O. It's that simple. E plus R equals O. E stands for events in your life. It could be anything. I'm going to tie it all together with healthcare, but bear with me. E plus R equals O. Thank you, Margot. She's the best. E is events in your life. Hey, it could be, this principal is calling you because your kid got in a fight. That's a special one. I'll pull from my own past. It could be, the renewal that you got that's going to shock the heck out of your customer. Right? It could be anything. It could be the overcharge you got at the restaurant. It could be, you had to repeat 4 times what your order was in the fast food line. Anything like that can be an event. And we're going to skip to the O. The O is the outcome. What's the outcome you get after these events? And that's what a lot of people complain about, right? They don't like their outcomes, but they're not willing to change anything else. So think of events. You can't control the events that happen in your life. Life happens. Outcomes happen. Your clients get an outcome. You show up with a 23% rate renewal. Trust me, they don't like that outcome. And they're going to do what? They're going to complain to you about this renewal process. Man, it's the same thing every year. You show up and you want more money. They talk to you like you're the insurance company for those fully insured people out there. And you guys, you want more money. And I don't see anybody taking a pay cut. I can't increase my cost to my customers 23%. What are they thinking? So E equals events, O equals outcomes. What's the R? This is where the magic in your life will happen. The R is your response. Not your reaction, John Sbrocco. Not the, Italian Jersey, fight or flight response reaction. No, your response. Think of response as you're interacting with your children or, hey, your spouse, your significant other. Maybe take a second to reflect before you react and are sorry for it. And so you reflect before you respond. So what's the point of it? The response is the only things in your life that you can control. How do you respond when your kid spills the milk? How do you respond when somebody, makes a mistake? Your coworker, right? They typed up the Word doc for you, but they never spell checked it, right? And you're like, gosh, it's faster for me to do it. I'll do it myself next time. See, that's the trap. That's the baby boomer trap. Oh, it's just easier if I just do it myself. It's faster. By the time I train them and teach them and review it and audit it, I could have just done it. And so that's why you older guys and gals, you'll tend to end up doing 72 things that you shouldn't be doing because of that trap. And so, but I digress. So events plus your response equals your outcomes in life. It is tremendously appropriate to your personal lives in how you respond to events that you can't control, that are going to happen every day. The guy cuts you off on the freeway. What are you going to do? How are you going to respond? The insurance company is refusing to approve the scan for the fourth time in a row for a cancer patient customer. And you're just shaking your head going, how could anybody be this stupid, right? But how are you going to respond in order to get a different outcome? So this is the thing. Complaining doesn't produce a better outcome, but it's what everybody does habitually. I mean, we don't even have to think about it. It's kind of like an automatic, what is Tony Robbins calls them, ants, automatic negative thoughts. And that neural pathway in your brain is so greased that there's zero friction on it. So you don't have to think about it. There's almost no delayed in the time an event happens that triggers you in your reaction. And so what you got to do is realize that, blaming, complaining, excuse making doesn't change your outcomes. So what you need to do is figure out how to take ownership, reflect before you respond, and figure out, is there something else that I can do, we can do, you can do that can change this outcome? Because at the end of the day, you can't control the events. It's fascinating, though. What do we know about the events? Is it predictable that the hospital, ambulatory surgical center physician, and pharmacy charges are going to go up every year? Well, heck yes, it's predictable. So here's an interesting conversation. I understand you don't like the 23% renewal, and that's why I'm here to talk about what our options are, because what do we know about this event that happens every year that you so dislike, called the renewal process? And sometimes I got to wheel in an oxygen tank, right, just to help you recover. What do we know about it? It's completely 100% predictable. But can we control anything inside our fully insured medical plan? Do we know what the claims experience is? Do we know the error rate on their claims payment? Do we know if there was mistakes made in the auto adjudication? Do we know if there was spread pricing going on in the pharmacy? Do we know what the claims experience of the pool is that we're in? And allegedly the pool has this rate increase. Well, who says? We don't really know anything. What's the IBNR calculation that they're using? There's just so many unknowns, and yet it's predictably a miserable event. So if we don't like the outcome, might I ask you, client, prospect, why don't we change our response? And so if you want certainty, if you want a chance to win, if you want more clarity and more control, then you need to strongly consider moving from fully insured to self-insured. Self-funded, partially self-funded, call it whatever you guys like to call it. But this is, an easy way to segue what is really a tool to help you operate your lives, your relationships with your kids, your coworkers, your partners, your spouses, your significant others, your pets. But it translates to business, because this event called the fully insured renewal is going to happen over and over and over again, and has already for 40 years. And so we know it's going to happen. It's measurable, it's predictable, it's repeatable, and yet we refuse to change our response. No, self-funded is too risky. What an absurd, ignorant statement. But if you're not armed and prepared on how to answer it and how to correct their constipated thinking, then you're going to be stuck with, I can't move this prospect because, I mean, how hard is it to quote United, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Humana in my state? Not hard. So why are they going to hire you? Oh, our service is the best. Okay, so what? Yeah, that's not a differentiator. That ain't going to work. Yeah, we wouldn't have business since 1939. Nobody cares. Okay, so and again, hey, 25 years ago, you could count on nobody doing anything new, anything different, anything innovative. And so it was real easy when I did retail, go in and get a BOR all the time. No problem. I'd even charge them a fee to take the BOR because we'd outsource $12 an hour work to my staff. I'm like, why are you doing $12 an hour work? It's not even your business. Let us do it. And so those were the easy days. Okay, now, Jesus, I mean, in general, the brokers and consultants and advisors have killed themselves giving away free stuff. And so differentiation is hard unless, of course, you can actually control the number, size, and frequency of claims, which I've talked about ad nauseum since 1995 when I learned it. 1995. Yeah, I went to a Jay Abraham weekend seminar at the West in Los Angeles. I spent $5,000 and he taught me about how to control the number, size, and frequency of sales and how a 10% increase in each one of those cumulatively is a 1/3 increase in the revenue of your organization. And it was like, can you cross-sell your groups 10% more? Of course you can. Can you get 10% more groups? Yes. Can you increase the average size of your groups 10%? If you just do that, you'll increase the revenues by 33%. But guess what? If you reduce the number of claims by 10%, the frequency by 10%, the severity by 10%, you multiply it out, you can save 27% on claims. And people are doing it. People have done it. It is all doable. None of your buyers know that. It's the reason that I'd say in the large group market that I play in with 1,000+ lives, 85 to 90% of the C-suite have abdicated responsibility to operations level, manager, people manager, total rewards manager, benefits manager, human resource manager. And they have so many competing demands that, what's the best they can hope for? They look at this 60 days a year, 90 days, 120 days for bigger companies. But they're the jack of all trades, the master of none. And so you have incredible challenges, but it's very easy. I find that the E+R=O conversation, however you mask it, you can use it literally, or you can use it euphemistically, metaphorically, to make it fit for healthcare. You don't like the outcomes. You bitch, moan, complain, and gripe every year, but you refuse to change your response. Changing your response doesn't mean, what have you guys done in the last 10 years? Well, let's see. We moved them from a low deductible PPO to a high deductible PPO with an HSA, most likely, because 52% of Americans, according to the latest survey I saw, are in high deductible health plans. So that means there's a hell of a lot of unhappy employees. And so, changing the deductible and cost shifting the employees and limiting access to care and reducing the network and coming up with a high performance network and all the myriad of things that have been done that are called best practices aren't changing the outcomes. You have to change your response to the events that are completely predictable and are going to happen, and that is you're going to get a rate increase. And if we have published inflation rates at 8.5 and healthcare averages 2x on published inflation, well, take any number you want, but if that's 16% rate increase, go into the rule of 72, what are we talking about? Every 4 years, your healthcare budget's going to double. How's that going to feel? What kind of impact's that going to have on the company? What will that restrict from happening? How many people will you have to lay off? What kind of pressure will that put on your job? What kind of pay increases are you giving when healthcare budget is doubling every 4 years? Easy conversations. So use E+R=O to have a conversation, literally or figuratively, about what are we going to do to change our response, knowing that this event, a large rate increase, double-digit rate increase of any kind, is going to happen every year because it's cooked into the system. Okay? Inflation happens to hospitals and surgical centers. 20%, according to Kaufman and Hall. I do a lot of work with hospitals and health systems. 20% of the healthcare workers quit various reasons during COVID. They had to use a lot of contract labor. Nurses. Contract nurses cost $100 more per hour on average than an employed nurse. So what's the second level consequence? Well, the profit margins for hospitals between inflation and the overhead increases. And oh, by the way, they can't control their healthcare costs. They're some of the worst on the planet. They have negative profit margins every month this year on average, according to Kaufman Hall, and the expectation is it'll be negative for the whole year. So what, guys, connect the dots. If the hospitals are telling everybody that will listen, we're losing money and it's not going away anytime soon, and so inflation's killing us, we need higher reimbursements. What are the insurance companies going to do? They're going to give them higher reimbursements. What's that mean to the fully insured rate marketplace? What kind of pressure does that put on them? A lot. A pressure to increase. So the event is going to continue to happen, and the outcome will just be varying degrees of less bad rate increase, right? Any of you followed my stuff for the last 10 years, you know, it's like the normal game is, how do we negotiate a less bad rate increase than my peer benchmark? And we'll call that consulting. The idea that you could never have a rate increase again or shouldn't have a rate increase is foreign to almost everyone I talk to. But it doesn't change the fact that it's being done out there. It is possible. People just don't know about it. And so let's focus on, how do we have a conversation with our client or our prospect about, I understand you don't like the outcome that happens every year, but you know it's going to keep happening because this is the way the system's established and set up. And every time the government intervenes, it's a cost shift to the commercial marketplace. I mean, it just never stops. The Inflation Act will do nothing more than shift cost to commercial over the next 4 years. And between that and inflation, guys, it's going to be a mess, but that's a huge opportunity. What does Warren Buffett say? When there's blood in the streets, that's opportunity that you want to play with. So I think we're coming up. It's only 4:21. Let's see if we have any questions here. I got to exit full screen. Hey, Frank, good to see you. Good to see you in Orlando. Thanks for dinner, by the way. My boy Frank, he's very, very analytical. So I know this is right up your alley, isn't it? We've got lots of opportunities coming our way if you're out there trying to get new business, right? So John and I at Heads Up Advisors for 4 years now have tried to give you guys and gals ideas, tactics, strategies, tools, techniques, a lot to help you compete in the marketplace, to make more money. Because invariably, if you're going to make more money, you're going to consider doing business with John in his Virtue Alliance, Virtue Health Consortium. And, you know, he's got a great idea. And for those of you who aren't aware of it, call Crystal or John and get a demo scheduled so you can see how to change your response on how you go about buying stop loss insurance for a single employer plan. You may not see the difference on the front end, but if you're in his Virtue Consortium, you'll see the difference on the back end. And what does the back end mean? The back end means persistency. It means you don't have to go shop till you drop every year and expose yourself to somebody else who shops till they drop. And the last guy in the door with stop loss gets the lowest rates. And you don't want to be in that game. You don't want to dance in that dance. It's a waste of time. So you change the way that you respond to what is thought to be a conventional, everybody's thought of everything, but it's not true. And so invariably, some of you will go elephant hunting and you'll think of me because that's the world I live in. I shot all these animals that you see behind me with my camera. Okay, take a deep breath. Okay, I know, see, some of you reacted to that, right? Oh my God. Reflect for a second before you respond. Yeah, see, that picture right there, that's me standing in a Jeep on my safari, taking pictures, shooting all these beautiful animals. And let me tell you, if you've never been on a safari, I highly recommend you get your butt to South Africa or other countries there and take a safari, hire a photographer who will teach you how to use your camera like a National Geographic photographer. Because I can tell you, my wife and I, we had great pictures. I mean, just fantastic. These are all our pictures behind me. And it was just a heck of a lot of fun. So I would recommend it. So things to remember: you created your reality. The reality that you're in right now, your income level, your book of business, your average size client, you created it, which means you can uncreate it. You can recreate a new reality for yourself. And the way you do that is by looking at the outcomes you're no longer willing to accept anymore and how you're going to change your response. Are you going to continue to quote for free in audition for prospects who don't value or respect your time and make you throw your hat in the ring? Okay, if you haven't learned that by now, you could talk to 50 different people who we've taught to charge fees to do any kind of an analysis, and their lives are forever changed. And they feel a lot better about themselves. And when they feel better about themselves, their relationships at home get better too. And so there's just I find there's just so many things that we can do. Don't like your reality? Recreate it. Change the way you respond to the world's events because you can't control any of them, and which means you can't control the outcomes, but you can control your responses. And therein lies a very simple secret that Jack Canfield communicated to me in my training with him. And I have tried to remember that. Other people might call that emotional intelligence, right? So you can't just go around and act like an 11-year-old, like some of our politicians do. Um, you've got to have some emotional intelligence. So you take a breath, you reflect before you respond, and your life will improve. So I think that's all I got, Margot. We're going to call it a wrap. John didn't make it. John is having a great time, I think, at a concert tonight somewhere in Florida. So kudos to John. You have to take time to recharge your batteries, especially with the fourth quarter coming up. It's insane for you guys and all of us. So, hey, he changed the way he responded. He used to just stress out. Look at him. He's taking the time out to go to a concert to recharge his batteries and say, I give myself permission to take 5 hours off. Some of you need to try that. So on that, I'll call it a wrap. Margot?